I'm Ru. I'm going to be talking to you about how to break into tech consulting. So, a quick agenda. It's going to take about 30 to 35 minutes roughly for me to get through the content that I've prepared. And I'm going to explain what consulting is, what tech consulting specifically is, how you can get into tech consulting, and a little summary of everything we've discussed. So, an introduction. I'm Ru. I currently work at Deloitte as a trustworthy AI consultant. I graduated from U of T last year with a major in computational cognitive science and minors in computer science, statistics, and business. I wanted to draw a timeline of my internship experience to kind of explain how I came into trustworthy AI and specifically consulting at Deloitte. So my first programming experience was in high school, and I knew what the terms AI ML and computer vision meant when I graduated high school. So I had a very early introduction to technology. And then my first year, I interned at a startup and I was a tech consultant there. So basically, I was helping them stand up their tech operations. At the same time, I was interning at another startup as a UI UX designer, helping them build their customer journey maps and helping them design their website. In my second year, I was a product manager at Microsoft. So this is one of the adjacent careers to tech consulting. I was in their Seattle offices and I was within the Bing Ads team. In my third year, I interned as a software engineer. This is not anywhere in the realms of tech consulting. This was a intern with the supply chain optimization group at Amazon. And then lastly, in my fourth year, I focused a lot on ethical AIML academic research. So I took pre-law classes, ethics classes, and humanities classes around the area of tech ethics and AIML ethics. Um, when I graduated, I actually wrote a CS career guide. This is slightly technical because I do focus on folks trying to get into software engineering, but the behavioral section and the networking section of that guide is still helpful to you regardless of what major you're in. So if anyone wants to check that out, I have the QR code up here. It's been published by the Department of Computer Science, so you'll also find it on their website somewhere. Okay, let's Ooh, give me a second. I lost my. Oh, there we go. Okay. So, what exactly is consulting? Um, you might have heard like buzzwords around this consulting field, and I did a quick Google search of the top four consulting firms. So, it's called the Big Four, and it's Deloitte, PwC, KPMG, EY. And I looked and Googled what is consulting Deloitte, what is consulting KPMG, and this is what you see on the side. The right side of my screen is what they showed on their websites. And I read through the first couple lines and I was trying to find the buzzwords that I could spot. So it's like deliver bold ideas, drive value, provide an executable strategy, transform organizations. Like all these words mean nothing to you when you're a student. You're probably like, what does this mean? I don't know what this field is anymore. And if you have spoken to a couple people at least, you would have this vision of consultants in your head of, someone who's going to like executive meetings, board meetings, someone who's traveling the world, eating fancy dinners, always showing up in a suit. That's kind of true, but it's not the reality of what a consultant is. A consultant, the best way for me to describe it to you is with the characteristics. So, a consultant is a problem solver. They're a quick thinker. They're a good communicator, and they're open to change or they're adaptable to change. So, think of it as when you're a student, you have your core coursework, which is your like classes that you're taking, and your goal is to have good grades in your classes. So that's the equivalent of a consultant's project. The consulting industry relies on projects. So everyone is on 3 weeks to 6 month projects, and the project is supposed to help a client solve a problem. So the goal is to deliver a good project. But at the same time, as a student, you have extracurriculars. You're showing up to this event, you're going to networking events, you are writing a blog post, you are, organizing events yourself. All of these extracurriculars that you do in uni translate to the extracurriculars a consultant does. So this would be the same of organizing events at your company, helping write a sales proposal to help your to help your firm sell to more products to clients. It could be going to a recruiting event or helping your company recruit students. So it's almost being a student, but instead of you paying tuition, they're paying you a salary. So it's very close to what a student life looks like. And I want to emphasize that like consultants help people solve problems, or it's just a client has a problem, they come to a consulting firm. The consulting firm gives them industry perspectives. It gives them new technology and solutions. It gives them research that the company can then use. So consultants are kind of like the grease between the wheels. If you picture the different portions of the company as different wheels. So you have your business wheel, you have your legal wheel, sales wheel, and then operations, and then engineering. Consulting is like the grease that helps all the wheels turn smoothly. Okay, so now that you know what a consultant does, there are multiple types of consulting. Um, I focused on the main types that I could think of and the ones that most students would also want to go into, but this is not a comprehensive list. There are multiple other consulting the focuses. It's called focuses or subspecialties. So the first one is strategy consulting. This is probably the one that all of you are picturing of like someone going into a board meeting and giving a presentation. This is a focus on your quantitative and analytical skills. So you're doing research, you're thinking through long-term visions for companies, like a 5-year company plan almost. And then the next one's management consulting. This is focusing on concerns that a company would have. So it's like operations, human resources. How do you help companies run more smoothly with their existing resources? The next one's financial advisory. This one's specific to mergers and acquisitions. So it's where companies are either buying each other or selling a portion of themselves. And then we have real estate. We have tax restructuring. There's a huge separate tax practice called audit, but you typically need to have some audit background. So the focus of this is not that, but that is also an option if you're interested in it. And then we have risk advisory. This is where I sit. I am in a subspecialty here. Risk advisory is okay, the government has all these laws and regulations companies have to follow. How are they following those laws and regulations? How can you help them follow those laws and regulations? Say a company got fined by one of these regulators, they go into a crisis. There needs to be a crisis management. Say they have other internal issues, they need to help smoothen these things, they call in consultants. There's also a new one here called ESG, which is environmental social governance. So this is where companies are thinking about their carbon footprint. They're thinking about how to offset their environmental impacts. Lastly, the reason we're all here, tech consulting. So this includes things like digital transformation. So it's going into a company which does not have any technology or has some minimal technology and helping them set up brand new technology that'll help them. So it's like, say all their files were in like a storage room somewhere. You're going in and helping them digitize all those files and building a digital record, a digital database almost. That's the digital transformation, digital solution implementation. You have cybersecurity consulting of cyber risk, um, any sort of like white hacking, ethical hacking would sit within cyber. And then lastly, you have AI/ML consulting. This is the brand new shiny one. Here you're doing you're thinking about how companies can use AI for their benefit. My subspecialty, if you think of it in an easier way, sits here of like I am a responsible AI consultant, but it's like it's in between risk and technology. And most companies bucket things differently. So wherever you go, this like applies, but it may not be bucketed the same way. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper into what tech consulting is. So tech consulting has the 4 subcategories that I showed you earlier. But if you think of the skill set that a tech consultant needs, they need to have a mix of business and technical skills. But this doesn't mean you need to know how to code. It doesn't mean you need to know how to read financial statements. It doesn't mean that you need both the skills completely all by yourself. Consulting is a group activity. You have to rely on group experience. You're often working with 4 to 5 other people, and they all come with different experiences that you can use and you can leverage to complement your knowledge level. So if you have a preference for one of the two, you can lean into that preference as long as you're able to understand when someone who's a bit more technical comes and talks to you what they're talking about. So you just need to be able to communicate with both groups of people. You don't need both skill sets. Like this is why I keep saying consultants are the grease that makes the wheels spin. Because if you can understand what a technical person is telling you, that's all you need. So I wanted to make this more concrete and give you like a sample scenario. So say there's a legal team in a company, they need a technical solution to like document their case files. They're going to call consultants, but these consultants need to have three skills, right? They have to understand what legal case files look like. They have to understand the business of implementing a technology, the cost of the technology, the cost to run the technology, the cost to train people to use this technology. And then you need the tech folks who can actually build and implement this. The consulting company would come in then with all these three skills and they would build a custom solution. They're not only building it, they're also training the employees on how to use it. They're going to give them instructions and guides on how to use and update the solution. So, again, as a consultant, you don't need all of the skills, but you just need to be able to communicate with people. All right. Um, Say all of this sounds great, but you're like, I don't think I like this as much as I thought I would. There are alternative pathways. Like there are other roles that you can have that are very similar to what a consultant does. So some of these listed here are product management. This is where you're thinking about a product lifecycle and you're helping a company build and launch a new product. Then you have program management. This is where you're helping a company set up a new program within them. So think of it as, okay, a company wants to do ESG practices. So they're now going to set up like an ESG program and they need a program manager to help run that. And then you have corporate strategy. So this is where you're doing what a consulting firm does, but you're doing it specifically for a company. And it's you're helping them manage their resources, you're helping them manage risk, you're helping them run the company as a whole with the strategy that the company wants. Then we have product strategy. This is where you're thinking about how do you launch a product? How does the product fit into the long-term vision of a company? And then lastly, let's just say you don't want to go into a big consultancy firm. That's very valid too. There are boutique consulting firms that specialize in one thing. There could be healthcare consultancy firms, there could be transportation consultancy firms. All they do is that one problem. Whereas in a big consultancy firm, like one of the big four, you get to see a variety of problems. Okay. Since I am a responsible AI consultant, I thought I'll take a couple of minutes here to explain what I do specifically and just give you all what that looks like, because I think everyone should have the knowledge of what AI/ML is. Um, okay, so this is my consulting subspecialty. I like putting definitions on because I want to make sure both of us are thinking of the same thing when I define things. So the very first thing is, what is AI? So AI is where you're taking advanced analytics and logic-based techniques to interpret events, support and automate decisions, or take actions. So in simpler words, AI is where you're doing some analysis, you have a logic-based thought process, and you are using that to understand what's happening and then you're taking an action on your understanding. Now, responsible or trustworthy AI is where there is a set of principles designed to guide the development, design, and use of AI so that it has trust with the users, trust with the community, and also considers the ethical and social impact of AI. So this is like, oh, if you have an AI your company uses, it relies on a data center, and this data center is often like in the middle of nowhere, and it needs a huge amount of fresh water to cool the data center. That's a huge ESG risk, right? You're taking so much of fresh water away from whatever that community the data center is in to help cool a data center. So you would have to think through that and see, okay, how much fresh water can we use without endangering that whole community? Specifically, what I do, in case you are interested in this, I read legal policies, which is where my pre-law classes come in. So I'm reading stuff like the EU AI Act, reading things that Canada is setting out. I'm learning how business models work. I'm learning how operating structures are. So this is where, if you're in Rotman, or even if you're not in Rotman, it's your MGT RSM 100 course. It's Intro to Management, I think is what it's called. I know the basics of finance. I know what an audit is. I know how financial markets work. So this is also correlated to the MGT or RSM 201 and then MGT RSM 230. MGT is basically like the RSM equivalent that non-business students can take, like non-Rotman students can take. And I took all of those. There's a certificate for it if you're curious. Lastly, because I come from a more technical side, my um, skill set is more technical. So I understand how AI works. I understand the statistics and the math and the machine learning models. But you don't need that if you know the business better. I just know the basics of finance, right? So it's like, it's how you're communicating your skills. Um, and I need to be able to critically think through all these. So if you ever think the essay or research paper you're doing is not that useful in the real world, I can tell you right now, consulting uses that research knowledge. A sample project that I would be doing is, how can a company reduce AI risk? How can they reduce ESG risk? How can they reduce bias risk? Because AI models can sometimes be biased. Okay, I will take a second here. We just walked through the various types of consulting. You saw all the options that are there, and I showed you my subspecialty. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, how do I actually get into this field? Well, I have a couple steps that you can follow. Okay, so this is the 5 steps that I would recommend you follow. However, caveat here is I personally didn't follow all 5 steps. So these are just recommendations. It's up to you on which steps you do and which steps you don't. And it's up to you on how you utilize these steps, right? So this is just a chance for you to learn what recruiting for this looks like. So the very first thing is knowing how to network. So consulting, as you saw, has so many subspecialties, subcategories. So networking is your chance to learn what these various subspecialties look like. There could be other types of consulting. I personally just don't know, and I didn't list here. And you can use networking as your chance to learn about them. It's also your chance to learn about the firm's culture and the firm's recruiting style. If you are curious about how one specific company recruits, you can always find someone there and ask them, hey, how is the recruiting process like? What was your recruiting process like? And most people are happy to share this knowledge. The next thing is case study preparation. Cases are the bread and butter of consulting. They are the most basic skill set that every consultant needs. And the best way to think about cases is they're a business problem. They're designed to test your problem solving, but more importantly, your communication. You need to be able to communicate with the person who is casing with you to make sure they understand how you're thinking through this problem. Multiple business schools have prep books for this. So if you just Google case study prep book, you're going to find like various schools prep books. I personally have read a couple, and the one I liked was NYU Stern. They have a good business book. There's also like, I want to say UPenn, and then Wharton. Like the Wharton 2017 case book is like recommended by everyone. I don't know a single person who's not told me to use that book. There's also a whole bunch of actual books out there. Like you can physically buy a book. There are people who have YouTube videos on this. So go look through the internet and find what works for you. Once you know how to case, at least the basics of it, you can test your knowledge by going to casing competitions. Casing competitions are often student run. They are ways to practice cases amongst your peers. It gives you a chance to see what other people case, what techniques they use, how they communicate, and improve your communication. Um, I personally have never been to a casing competition, but I've been to similar tech competitions because I am more tech focused, and I've been to hackathons. A hackathon is where you build a technical project within like 24 to 36 hours and you pitch it at the end to judges. The pitching portion of a hackathon and the business research of the product is where a business consultant would thrive. I would also recommend you try out hackathons if you're interested in tech consulting, because then you get to talk to actual technical folks and see what they think, how they communicate. Lastly, you're going to need behavioral interviews. This is so important in consulting. Like, if there's nothing else you learn today, please learn how to do behavioral interviews. Consulting relies so much on your conversation and storytelling. You need to be able to think through things and communicate them very effectively. You have to keep people engaged. When you're presenting a slide deck like this, you have to ensure that everyone is listening to you, everyone's understanding what you're saying, and you're speaking at the level that they would understand. So you can use frameworks like STAR. This is situation, task, action, result. Or you can use something called CAR. It's context, action, result. Whichever feels better for you, you can pick one of the two and start practicing. Once you've practiced all of this, you can actually recruit. And recruiting means applying to as many jobs as you find. Recruiting is a numbers game, unfortunately. So you just have to keep applying until someone says yes. Okay, I'm gonna go deeper into consulting here. If networking, sorry. If you are wondering, okay, how do I effectively network? Like, this is the way I tend to do it. It's first get my elevator pitch down. This is a 1 minute introduction that has all your key details. And it is something that if I met one of you outside on the street today, would give you enough knowledge about me that you can talk to me and you can hold a conversation with me. So you can try practicing these at events, at conferences. The next step is coffee chats. These are short 30-minute meetings that you would have to learn about someone's career and ask them for advice. And again, for this, you can practice with upper years. They're a lot more forgiving, they're a lot more nicer, and the um, I guess, barrier to reach them is much lower because they're just an upper year in your class, right? You can also do this with alumni. All of us have been where you are, where we don't know how to coffee chat really well, and it takes practice. So you're welcome to reach out to alumni. You're welcome to reach out to me. And then remember that not everyone has the capacity to say yes, right? A coffee chat is a voluntary 30-minute meeting that someone's doing. They may not have the time for it. So you need to reach out to multiple people. Try 50 people, and you'll see probably 10 of those people are going to reply to you. It's it's because they're volunteering their time. Not a lot of folks would have the time to give. So keep that in mind and reach out to multiple people. That's why I like to think of this as the 1-30-50 rule. So do the elevator pitch, it's 1 minute. Do the coffee chat, they're 30-minute things. And then when you reach out to people, try reaching out to 50 people because not all of them will say yes, and that's okay. Lastly, please remember that networking is not the same as a referral. Networking is where you're curious about the person, you're curious about their experience. At the end, it could lead to a referral, but it may not always lead to a referral. And more often than not, authentic networking is what pays off much more than a referral. If someone really likes you and someone really thinks you deserve a chance, they will walk your resume to the hiring manager. And that's not going to happen if you ask them for it. It's going to happen if they think that, I want to advocate for this person. Because you have to remember a referral is where I am putting my professional reputation on the line and saying, hey, in my professional opinion, I think this person's a good fit. And that's a lot to ask of someone in 30 minutes, right? So keep that in mind, but keep reaching out. Someone will say yes, and all you need is one person saying yes. I wanted to leave you with a tangible skill. So this is my elevator pitch that I think you can mimic. And I've had a lot of success with this, which is why I want to show you this. It's very simple, honestly. You start off with your name. That's the first thing you want to say. Then you give your education. So this is what year you're in, where you're studying, what you're majoring in. Then if you have a job that you worked at, you can add that. Say you don't have a job. Like when I was a first year, I would say, oh, I'm the first year associate for U of T WICS, which is U of T Women in CS. You can also use that. And you can like explain like a little bit, like, oh, women in computer science host events at U of T. Like it's just very brief, couple words. Then you can have a mission statement or a passion statement. Again, I did not have this when I was in uni. I only got this when I was in my fourth year because then I had enough experience to curate a mission or a passion statement. You can replace it with a passion statement being like, I'm passionate about technology and how technology can improve lives. Like, that's fine. And then lastly, you need to have a why. So the why is why you're reaching out to me. So this is in a coffee chat. I'll be like, okay, take a couple seconds to introduce yourself. This is the why. It's also needed when you recruit because all interviewers are going to be like, tell me about yourself. And then to keep things a bit light, to break the ice a bit more, include a fun fact. So this for me was attending hackathons. It could be baking bread, it could be gardening, it could be anything under the sun. It's just something that you actually do and that you can talk about. Um, okay, this is an elevator pitch. Practice saying it over and over again until you can say it like it's second nature because you want to say this confidently because this is your first impression, right? It's the first verbal impression you're giving someone, and you want to be able to say this very smoothly. Okay, now that we've seen this, I want to leave you with like a key takeaway here of my stats breakdown for internships. Please note that it was only in my fourth year, which is here, that I did consulting recruitment. These are non-consulting recruitment, but I think it's still effective for you to see of my rejection rate sitting in the 70% at all given points of time. I have always been in a 70% rejection rate. This is even as a fourth year, like this is a 70% rejection rate, and it'll always be there. The rejection rate is forever a constant that you can rely on. You will always get rejected. Okay. It took only a couple people to say yes, which is this 9%, this 2%, another 2% here, and another 6% here. All I needed was that 2 to 3 yeses to move me past and get an internship. The rejection, it's always there. Um, this is like a little like summary learning that you need to learn. Rejections are a part and parcel of life. They will never leave. They are not a reflection of you. They are not a reflection of your skills. It's just something that happens. Okay. Rejections happen due to lack of headcount, lack of budget, a skill mismatch that they didn't originally know, the company didn't know, organizational changes, hiring freezes. There's so many reasons. But you just have to learn from it and let it go. And you also need to learn to say no. Other people can say no, you should say no too. If you don't learn to set your boundaries, others will set them for you, and that's not a good thing. And you can practice this in low stakes environments. You can practice this in your group projects, in your extracurriculars, in part time jobs that you have, until you get to the point that you can practice this in a real job, in a real situation. Um, Again, I really want to drive home this message that rejections happen. So I have a second graph here of the number of applications I put, which is this light blue bar, and then the number of rejections I got, which is the darker, dark blue bar. And you can see how close they are. It's such a small difference in them that you can guess how many rejections I have. Like, rejections happen every time. Okay. And again, this is after Microsoft. Year three was when I had Microsoft on my resume. Year four was when I had Microsoft and Amazon on my resume. So if you think a big name protects you from rejections, let me be the first person to tell you it does not. All right. It really does not. It makes it easier. It does not protect you from a rejection. Okay. We are almost at the end. A little bit of a summary so that you know everything we discussed today, because I know it's a pretty dense workshop that you're in. All right. So, number one, we learned that consultants are problem solvers and they help improve communication across different teams. Okay. The next thing, there are many types of consulting. Tech consulting is one of them, but it's not the only one. There are also other alternatives to consulting, so product management, corporate strategy, product strategy. Next, recruiting for consulting. This has 4 key steps. You need to network, you need to prep for case studies, you need to go to case study competitions, and then you need to know how to do a behavioral interview. Lastly, rejections are a part of life. I will say this how many more times it takes for you to learn this, but rejections are a part of life and they're not a reflection of you. Okay, thank you. I have my LinkedIn and the CS Career Guide up here in case you want these. You're welcome to practice your networking skills by sending me a message with your like elevator pitch. Um, and yeah, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions about what consulting looks like or you want to learn more about the role that I have.